Hi guys, James Egan here. I had a book published this year called Your Teeth Can Explode and Other Disorder Facts. It is a book that details hundreds of different disorders. Some of them are very well known, like dwarfism or gigantism, and I also deal with disorders that are a little bit more obscure, like Unbreakable Bone Syndrome. The film Unbreakable revolves around a man called David Dunn, who is the sole survivor of a train crash. Dunn realizes that he has never had an injury in his life, and the only time he has nearly died is when he nearly drowned. Bizarrely, there is a man, simply called John, who has been in a very similar situation. John has a mutation, so his bones are 8 times stronger than a normal person. When John was involved in a car crash in 1994, he didn't break a single bone. The weirdest thing is, John has the exact same weakness as David Dunn in Unbreakable: water. His bones are so heavy, it's impossible for him to swim. And that is the first fact about disorders. Let's dive in. Here's a disorder that everyone has heard of, but a lot of people misunderstand. Anemia. What causes anemia? A lack of iron, right? Not necessarily. Anemia is caused by a decrease of hemoglobin, which impairs the blood's ability to carry oxygen. This causes the person to feel lightheaded, weak, unmotivated, and faint. Many people suffer anemia when they're lacking the vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is usually in the same food as iron, which is why people associate anemia being caused by a lack of iron. Adermatoglyphia is a genetic disorder that stops a person developing fingerprints. Because this compromises a person's ability to be identified, anyone with this condition is not allowed to enter certain countries, including the United States. Ageusia is a complete loss of taste. A partial loss of taste is Hypogeusia. Fun fact, I suffered from hypogeusia until I was 18. The first thing I ever tasted was yogurt. It was so amazing, I nearly passed out. Agraphia is a neurological disorder that prevents a person from reading. Howard Engel woke up one day learning that he had this disorder. Ironically, Engel was an author. Alexithymia is the inability to identify, show, or describe emotions. You know when you say someone's running amok? That's a disorder. It doesn't just mean going crazy. It is a mental illness in Malaysia, Indonesia, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. It's derived from the Malay-Indonesian word Mengamuk, which means to make a furious and desperate charge. Running amok tends to happen to spiritual-based tribes in Malaysia. The tribesmen believe those who develop amok have been corrupted by a tiger spirit, which causes them to lash out. Sometimes, an infected person convinces themselves they will be free of amok if they kill the person who placed the curse on them. Weirdly, there is no reports ever of a woman suffering this disorder. Anosogonosia is a condition that causes the sufferer to be unaware they have an illness. A person with this disorder may be paralyzed from the waist down, but they are absolutely convinced they can walk. Aphantasia causes a person to have a blank imagination. If you ask an Aphantasian to picture a dragon, they wouldn't be able to think of scales, wings, breathing fire, horns. They would just think of the word dragon. Although this condition was discovered in the 19th century, it wasn't taken seriously until 2015. If you think that sounds like a really annoying disorder, it gets worse. An Aphantasian can't think of lyrics or a beat. It doesn't matter how many times they hear Michael Jackson's Beat It or Adele's Hello, they will never be able to remember the song. Arctic hysteria causes a person to become deranged when they've experienced intense cold for a long period. This disorder usually happens to Inuits. Because an Inuit's diet contains a lot of fat and very little vitamin A, they can become aggressive, disoriented, and unbearably hot. This causes the sufferer to tear off all their clothes, even in sub-zero temperatures, and run around frantically. Inuits believe the erratic behavior is caused by an evil spirit. Auto-Brewery syndrome. This is just unfair. Imagine being pulled over by a police officer for suspected drunk driving. Imagine you blew into the breathalyzer that verifies you are way over the limit. Now imagine that not only did you not drink, but you have never even touched alcohol in your entire life. ABS is a disorder that causes ethanol to develop in the digestive system, which causes a person to test positive for a breathalyzer even if they haven't drunk alcohol. Unsurprisingly, many drunk drivers have pretended to have this disorder when they've been pulled over by the police. It's really hard to convince a cop you have this disorder since it emulates drunkenness. That's right, even if you don't drink, you still get fatigue, slurred speech, confusion, aggression, dizziness, you even get a hangover. Bearded lady syndrome causes a person to grow excess body hair. It's different from hirsutism because the hair grows in normal places but at an incredible rate. Women with this disorder usually develop a beard, but not always. For centuries, people with this condition appeared in freak shows as a human-ape hybrid or a werewolf. Although the hair can be shaved off, it grows back at astonishing speed. Benjamin Button syndrome is a genetic disorder that causes children to suffer premature aging. In the 1996 film Jack, Robin Williams' character suffers progeria, so he looks 40 years old even though he's 10. In reality, the disorder does not work this way. Progeria sufferers have normal intelligence but have withered bodies due to their cells aging too quickly. They suffer hair loss, stunted growth, fragile bones, and pinched facial features. Sadly, sufferers of this illness have a life expectancy of only 13 years. Okay, that was a bit depressing, so let's look at a funny disorder. Beserk Llama syndrome. This condition causes a llama to believe a human is a llama. This disorder is terrifying and hilarious at the same time. Okay, bibliophilia is a love of literature, but bibliomania is a dangerous obsession with books. Not only do bibliomaniacs buy, steal, and hoard books, they usually don't have any interest in reading them. A bibliomaniac might buy several copies of a rare book just so nobody else can have it. This disorder has recently become common with comic book collectors. Would you believe being blindly in love with somebody is a recognized disorder? It's actually called identity annihilation. Blind love is when a person gives up their entire life to be with someone that they are infatuated with. The best example is The Little Mermaid. Ariel gives up her entire life, her family, her home, and her voice to be with a guy she barely knows. Argyria or Argyrosis is better known as blue skin syndrome. If a person consumes too much silver, it will impair their kidney functions and night vision. However, this condition is best known for turning the person's skin color blue. Once the skin changes color, it cannot be reversed. There's a very simple way to avoid getting this disorder. Stop eating silver. Boanthropy is a psychological disorder in which a person believes he is a bovine, as in a buffalo, a yak, an antelope, or a cow. Weirdly, this disorder is mentioned in the Bible. Okay, let's go back to the film Unbreakable. Samuel Jackson's character, Elijah Price, suffers from brittle bone disease. This genetic disorder prevents collagen from building up in the body. Although BBD sufferers have undeveloped muscles, weak bones, and loose joints, the most notable physical trait is the whites of the eyes are tinted blue. Borderline intellectual functioning is when a person has an intellectual disability, but they're not classified as having Asperger's or autism. A good example would be the titular character in Forrest Gump. Cerebrovascular Atherosclerosis causes calcium deposits to build up in the cerebral arteries in the brain until it becomes solid. Basically, this condition turns a person's brain to stone. It is believed that the Soviet-Russian leader Vladimir Lenin died from this illness. Cyclical Vomiting syndrome causes a person to vomit uncontrollably with no warning. This can last a lifetime, and nobody knows what causes it. Bizarrely, Charles Darwin suffered this disorder for most of his adult life. In that show that everybody used to like, Game of Thrones, the character Hodor suffers Broca's aphasia. This disorder makes a person have very limited vocabulary, despite the fact that their intelligence is completely unimpaired. There was a very weird illness in the 16th century simply called the dancing disease. In 1518, there was a dancing epidemic in Strasbourg. 400 people danced for a month straight until most of them died from heart attacks. Nobody knows what caused it. Visual release hallucinations is a visual hallucination that blind people suffer. This disorder is quite common with people who just lost their sight and can last for up to 18 months. Although Charles Bonnet discovered this disorder in 1760, it wasn't introduced into psychiatry until 1982. Chimerism is when a twin dies in the womb and the other twin absorbs its DNA. If a person is born this way, they are known as a chimera. One chimera, called Taylor Mull, has had autoimmune issues her entire life because her body keeps trying to fight off her twin's foreign cells. Clinical lycanthropy is a delusion that causes the sufferer to believe they can transform into a werewolf or some sort of demonic beast. You know when people keep making puns? That is an actual recognized disorder called Forster syndrome.
Talk about your cold shoulder.
Yep. That movie's still terrible. This disorder was first recognized in 1929 when the neurosurgeon Oftred Forster removed a tumor from a patient's brain, which caused the patient to burst out laughing and ramble a series of puns. The syndrome was documented by Arthur Koestler. Koestler found it bizarre that the syndrome was identified from a man tied face down to the operating table with his skull open. Coprographia is a disorder that compels a person to draw obscene drawings. It literally means crap drawing. Copropraxia compels a person to make inappropriate gestures. It translates into crap action. And for the final fact, you might be thinking about the title of my book. Can your teeth actually explode? And the answer is not anymore. During the 1800s, there were several cases of people's teeth blowing up. From the late 19th century onward, there has never been a case of this happening since. Researchers aren't sure why this happened, but there is a very good theory. Teeth fillings during that time were composed of lead, tin, and silver, which could potentially create a low-voltage electrochemical cell. If these fillings came into contact with hydrogen, which can form from a cavity, it would create an electrical charge, causing a mini explosion. However, this theory has been tested Probably because test subjects don't have exploding teeth in their skulls. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe. If you want me to do a video about more disorders, let me know and I'll upload it as soon as possible.